Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
You can make a change. It may look like a drop in the ocean, but for some of us, that's all that we need. We don't want the ocean. We just need the drop in the ocean because it makes all the difference. Today, I can proudly introduce myself as Dr. Kababu, but it's because of that gentleman back in primary school who paid my examination fee. That lady in high school who admitted me with nothing. And that board of management in my high school that paid my fees. If they did not do that, I would be talking of something totally different. I would have been a school dropout or anything. But they came through.
Her name is Margaret Kababu, and I am so excited to introduce you to her and for you to hear her story of growing up in Kenya in poverty as an orphan and the way that God intervened in her life to her recently, Dr. Margaret Kababu, recently with her PhD in food security. Welcome to the Passion Meets Purpose podcast, as well as Deb Sears' new title at WorldCOMP Kenya. Congratulations, you say.
Oh, yeah. Deb Sears, WorldCOMP president.
How long? Is that like your first official?
That's the first time I've said it.
You heard it.
It feels real uncomfortable.
Deb, you have known Margaret Kababu for how long?
Probably over 10 years. Yeah, she works on our WorldCOMP Kenya board, and she holds the position of treasurer. So she carries lots of many hats, but really she's our go-to for conflict resolution, and she's our go-to really for the children. She has a massive heart for children and impoverished children, and you're about to see why.
I'd love for you to introduce her today.
Yeah. Okay, so my friend Margaret Kababu, who is coming all the way from Nairobi, which is 24 hours in the air. It's a long way from home. She's married. She's got 3 beautiful children. She, just as you said, recently got her PhD in food securities, and she's a professor. And also, she volunteers with WorldCOMP, has a real passion for children. And so I'm just so thrilled to introduce you to Margaret Kababu.
Thank you so much, Deb. I am Kababu. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a long, long way from home. But it's good to be here this morning just to tell you a little bit about myself and what life has been for the last many years. Where I was picked from to where I am now, I have seen tremendous changes and tremendous growth, and the Lord has been good for working with me all the way. I was born in Nairobi, that's the capital city of Kenya, where I lived with my parents for 11 years. Then at 11, my father passed away. When I was in Kenya, that should be in grade 5. So I was in grade 5 when my father passed away. We lived a good life. He was doing a good job. He had good money. But suddenly, things turned around. It felt like being in a room, and suddenly the lights went off, and we could not locate where the socket was. Picture a little girl in a room, all alone, not knowing where to go when the lights suddenly go off. It felt like I was swimming, then suddenly I had a cramp on my leg and began to drown and called for help, and there was no help coming by because change was rapid and complete. One day, I was this girl living with my parents in the capital city of Kenya. The following day, we had been transported to the village because he died and we had to go. And one of the things that happens in some of the cultural communities in Kenya is men are more empowered than women. You'll go to most families back in the day where the husband will be working with a good job, but most wives are not empowered. They'll not be so learned. Most of them don't have jobs, which means they're not able to support their families. They're totally and completely dependent on their spouses. So when my father died, that is what happened. The sole breadwinner was plucked off. And my father had 2 wives. That may be strange for you. And those wives were sisters. That is something that is very common in Kenya or in Africa. Not marrying sisters, but polygamous households. There are so many. But this was a unique case where this gentleman actually married sisters. And we were 12 of us, all going to school, all living comfortably, all able to eat and do everything. But when the rug was pulled from under our feet, we could not even have food on the table. Our mothers could not put food on the table. They could not take us to school comfortably. They could not clothe us as you were clothed before, so things just turned around. So from Nairobi to Kisumu, then when we went to Kisumu, one of the things that happened again in the villages there, they say, once your husband dies, where should you stay in the city? You're supposed to relocate to the village. The life is completely different from what you have here. You all live in the city, and when you go out of the city, you go on holiday or to visit. But back home, we live in the city, or we could be living in an urban area, but we also have our village homes that are totally different. So generally, almost all of us have 2 homes, the rural home and the urban home where you could be living. So our life was moving from the urban to the rural. So in that confusion, all that process, one of my aunt sisters to my mother said, I'll not let these people stay in the village. My brother-in-law's children cannot stay in the village. He was a very proper man. So what I'll do is this. I will educate all his children. So I'm taking them all away with me to this other city, which was now Kisumu. There is a city in Kenya called Kisumu. So she took us all to Kisumu, the 12 of us, and kept us in her house for a while. But how long can you keep 12 children under your roof? And she took us all who were going to school, so we got admitted into school, but that was all she could do. She couldn't do more than that. So we went to school, we were admitted to school, and then all the trouble began at that point. So here we are in a new environment, in a new school. The sole breadwinner is gone. There is no one to pay for school fees. There is no one to provide food. There is no one to supply all the basic needs, basically clothing and all that. I remember for years, I wore my mother's, or she had 2 older dresses, completely different generation. And I wore them comfortably. I'll wash one and wear the other. I remember going to school and I could not afford to get school uniform. Because in Kenya, we wear a uniform to school. So I was not able to get that. For the longest time, I wore my Girl Scout uniform to school. I'll just wash it and wear it day in, day out. And because I did not have shoes, it got to a point where I actually wore my brother's shoes to school. And you know, boys' shoes and girls' shoes are totally different. But I wore his shoes to school. And when his shoes were worn out, I grabbed my mother's shoes and wore the high heels to school. The school was quite far, more than 2 kilometers, and I was walking from home to school daily. So imagine a schoolgirl walking in high-heeled shoes, putting on socks as well, because that is the school requirement. So I'm there with my mother's shoes, I'm wearing socks, walking to school every morning and evening. I must have looked weird, but it never crossed my mind until now that probably I created a very strange picture. But somehow I was able to go to school. The interesting bit in primary came when I was in class 8, which will be like grade 8 here. So when I was in grade 8, you're required to pay some fee in order to do your final exam. So here I was in a situation where I needed to pay that fees, and my mom was too broke. She couldn't afford to pay that for me. So every time the school head teacher will come to class whenever there was an exam and shout out and say, Kababu, bring your paper here. Then I'll take my exam paper. Then the next thing she will say, go get your mom. And because my mom was so broke and she didn't want to deal with this gentleman, she always said, go and tell him I am not coming. That happened a couple of times, 3 or 4 times. He'll just come to class in the morning and say, Kababu, bring your paper here. Go get your mother. And my mom will say, go tell him I am not coming. Finally, her brother talked to her and told her, you know, you don't have to subject this child to this much pressure? Why don't you just go to school so that she can be allowed to study? So finally she came to school, and my mom was this beautiful woman, and she looked so young. So when I go to school with her, first of all, as you are walking to the office, all my classmates or all the students got up to just check and see who my mother was. And then we went to the headmaster's office, and she looked at her and asked me, "Are you sure this is your mother?" I said, "Yes." "Are you sure this is your mother?" I said, "Yes." "Are you sure this woman is your mother?" I said, "Yes, she's my mom." Then the guy said, "Go to class." He just chased me away, said, "Go to class." And he never sent me home again. His point was, he said, "I don't want to teach a child whose parent I do not even know. At least bring your parents so that I know you belong, you're coming from somewhere." And that was the last time he chased me or sent me home to get school fees. And the one thing he did for me is that he paid for my examination fee. That's a fee that cannot be waived. Someone had to pay for it. And this gentleman, not my relative, he paid for that fees. And I was able to do my primary final examination. If he didn't pay it, I would not have done it. I had nowhere to get money. And there was nowhere to help out on that one. I was a bright girl, extremely bright. So I passed my exams, and I got an admission to one of the provincial schools in Nyanza. There is the western part of Kenya. Once upon a time, there was a province called Nyanza. Now it's been divided into several other counties. So I got admission to one of the provincial schools, and my mom took me there. But she was extremely broke. She only had 2,000 shillings. 2,000 shillings is less than $20. That's all the money she had on her. So we went there with my things to school, and when we got to the school, we sat out there waiting to go in to be admitted. And we walked in, and we found this lady, the principal of the school, and she told my mom, after talking to her, and said, "I do not deal with broke parents. I can't admit your child in this school. So take her things and go away." And there I was with my mother being chased from a school, a dream high school. And for this, I salute my mother forever. She said, she didn't beg. In her poverty, she also had some level of pride. She didn't beg. We simply carried our things and left. And she said, "I'm not taking you home. I'm actually taking you to a different school." That different school, she knew the principal or the head teacher. That was a sister. We have sisters in the African culture. Well, you may not be my sister by birth, but we have sisters. So she was one of those sisters. So there we were. We went to that school. Actually, we got there around 6 p.m. in the evening. I did not have an admission letter to that other school, because one of the things is the school has to admit you or invite you to join the school. So you're sent a letter, which we call the admission letter, and that letter has a series of requirements for different schools. So different schools had different requirements. But here I was at 6 p.m. getting into a school without all the school requirements, including a calling letter. The other unique thing is the things that were required in the other school were totally different from the requirements in this other school. For instance, in school A, I needed brown shoes. In school B, they needed black shoes. In school A, we were going with our home clothes. Then they will give us uniform from school. In school B, you had to carry your uniform from home. In school A, they provided a mattress while in school. In school B, you had to carry your mattress to school. So here I am, a Form 1 or freshman at that level, with nothing. No shoes, no uniform, no requirements, no calling letter, and broke. We didn't have money. We only had 2,000 shillings. 2,000 shillings is less than $20. That is all the money my mother had. But then she talked to this. We got there. Her sister wasn't there. We found a new deputy principal. She had just come to that school. She was also new. So when my mother went and said, "My sister teaches here," she was wondering, who is this sister of yours who teaches here? I don't know you. How would I know if the information you're giving me is correct or not? But somehow, this lady agreed to admit me into this school. Broke child with nothing, with a broke mom, nothing else. And what she did was, she called the head girl, asked the head girl to borrow everything for me from the other students. A mattress surfaced. They borrowed a mattress from somewhere. They borrowed shoes from somewhere. They borrowed uniform from other older students who had more than one uniform. So I was there the first few days and everything I had was old. You know the way new students are new with everything? So I was a new old student with everything old. But the lady admitted me. If she did not admit me, I would have had to go back home with my mom. So my mom said, I will pay fees. We are going to organize a fundraising. Then I will pay fees for this girl. So that was the commitment. So about 3 weeks later, I was sent home. Your mother said she was going to get money. So now we need you to go home and get that money and bring it to us. So I went, and the only money my mother gave me was about $40. That is all she was able to raise from the fundraiser. We needed around $200 for the first year of school, but she only managed to do $40. And the sister, because the sister had come, the sister knew the situation at home. And she asked me, so this is the money your mother has given you. What are we supposed to do? And I said, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I wouldn't know what to do. This is what she's given me. This is what I brought. And she was like, with this, I actually need to send you back home because this cannot keep you in school. But I know that even if I send you back, nothing is going to change. You're not going to get the money from anywhere and you will not even bring it. So she said, I'll keep you in school, and left it at that point. But along the way, the board of management of the school had a conversation where they agreed either to waive my fee or pay my fee. I do not know. And so again, my fee for entire high school was paid up, or it was cleared. I did not have to pay any other money except for the $15 I paid initially and the $40 I paid the second time throughout my high school. And that would have been a lot more than that. If they were not there, I can bet on my life that I will not have gone through high school. And if the lady who rejected me admitted me in her school, I will not have gone through high school. So I thank God that she rejected me. I had an opportunity elsewhere. They will not have done what happened in the other school because it's a very rare occurrence. I have never heard of it. That was the first time I heard of it. I have not heard of it again. But in my case, God made it happen. And then after that, my mom fell sick. She died. She died along the process before I cleared high school. And it was just crazy. I cannot tell you the number of times I went to bed without food. Not only me, but my siblings as well. It was crazy for all of us. And each of us has our own story. And you know, when my mom died, all of us had to go and live with my elder sister. She's only 4 years older than me. So here she is. She's barely 23. And she has all these siblings that are getting into her house. And the husband just vanished. And if I was the husband, I would definitely have vanished as well. If somebody comes and drop 11 children on you, while you only have 2, and these are grown children with diverse, serious needs, high school, college, you can't take it. So he took off. But it was pretty tough. I remember on the list of items I used to have in high school, I always had around 11 basic items that I needed. Just 11 items. I was like, with this, I cannot do without this. So that was my bare minimum. And that is all I needed. But I don't remember ever having pocket money while going to school unless when someone else was able to do that. So it was just crazy. But amidst all that, all the trouble, somebody came in to support one step of the way and the other. In primary school, there was this principal or headmaster that was not my relative, but he paid my fees. In high school, There are all these people who stood in the way and they made a way. They were able to hold my hands and get my head above the water. Were they not there? Had they not been there, I know for sure I'll not be where I am today. Today, I can proudly introduce myself as Dr. Kababu, but it's because of that gentleman back in primary school who paid my examination fee. That lady in high school who admitted me with nothing. And that board of management in my high school that paid my fees. If they did not do that, I would be talking of something totally different. I would have been a school dropout or anything. But they came through. So there are times when you do things and they seem so little. They seem so little. But that small act of kindness may be the only light in a little child's darkness that makes their world bright, and at times they just focus and follow on that single source of light, and it takes them to a beautiful destination. Will you be the light? At times, you're just the hand that is dipped into the water to hold the child when the child is drowning, and you give them a new lease of life. That gentleman in primary school who paid my fees, he gave me a new lease of life. That lady who took me in and put me into school without anything, she gave me a lease of life. And the students who gave their things so that I was able to be admitted, somebody gave a pair of shoes, another one gave their skirts, another one gave their blouse, different things. Those things made all the difference. And I am today because someone gave or shared a piece of themselves to make me what I am today. You can be that to someone. You can make a change. It may look like a drop in the ocean, but for some of us, that's all that we need. We don't want the ocean. We just need the drop in the ocean because it makes all the difference.
Your story is beyond inspiring. Take us to making the decision to get your PhD in food security, because your whole life now is giving back.
When I did my master's, it was on agricultural entomology. So I'm an entomologist, by the way. I study bugs, I study insects. So that was agricultural entomology that basically dealt with pests of crops. That was my thing, crop protection and all that, again to enhance food security. Then after that, I had this crazy desire to work in the HIV world. People who have HIV or people who are suffering from AIDS. I had that, it was a passion in me, something that I really wanted to do. But you see, I am from a life science background, nothing related to social science. But God in his divine wisdom and grace actually intervened and gave me an opportunity to work in the HIV world. What made me desire to go into the HIV world? One, I actually lost my parents to HIV. And I literally watched my mother die. I nursed my mother when she was sick. I was young, yes, but I nursed her when she was sick. There are many times when we went to see her in hospital and we could not even afford medication, the basic medication, because at that point in time, the public facilities in Kenya were not giving medication. So you had to buy medication and take it to hospital to have your patient attended to. But here we are, all these many children, but we could not afford to buy medicine. So with all that, I literally watched my mother die. There was nothing we could do about it. I nursed her to a week before she died, because I saw her, then she died a week later, but I did nurse her when she was bedridden. So it was kind of frustrating. It's something that remained in my spirit, that I was not able to do anything. I was so helpless. I could not help in any way. So this desire to get into HIV work was so that I could give back or feel like I had helped in some way. You know, when your hands are tied and there is nothing you can do and you watch your loved one die, it is frustrating. And especially for a child, it doesn't go out of your mind. It remains there, fixed somewhere. So I used to say in my heart, God, I wish there is a way I can give back so that I can let it go out of my heart. So finally, he made a way, and I went into the HIV world for close to 5 years. And I was working on interventions to prevent the spread of HIV, that is counselor-supported disclosure, to prevent partner infection or infecting your partner and all that with HIV, so that every time there was testing to be done, all those kind of HIV prevention interventions. And then the other thing I was doing as part of that is intimate partner violence prevention, because with HIV, we also have a lot of intimate partner violence. So that is part of gender-based violence. And I did this for 5 years. And I listened to women talk about the transformation the interventions brought in their lives. And it got to a point where I felt, God, I have done this thing. I have done it. And out of one of the studies that we actually conducted on the counselor-supported disclosure, WHO came up with the partner notification program, where they actually do partner testing in order to prevent the spread of HIV. And it was quite fulfilling. And even listening to the stories of the women who took the interventions to prevent intimate partner violence, talking about the ability to be able to say no to different things, to stand for themselves and not just allow themselves to be abused, whatever the case, I was like, I've done it. And then I got to a point where I felt, now I'm done. I'm totally, completely done with the HIV world. This is what brought me, and I've done it. So I used to tell God, now I want to do a PhD in food security with focus on insects, because I have studied entomology, and it's difficult to get that PhD that I was looking for. I'd not seen one that was narrowed to that particular level. Mine was so focused on what I really, really wanted to do. Because then I said, I have this bit on HIV, I have this bit on gender-based violence, but I want to tie them all up together with what I have been doing all along. So food security was now the way to tie them up. Crop protection, food security, women empowerment. And you see women empowerment because I grew up with a widow and I saw her pain. So it was something that bothered me. Then the food security, women should be able to to feed their families. How can we go to the lowest level, the grassroots levels, to empower a woman to do that? So when I was thinking about food security, I was not even looking at the bigger picture of what UN says and the others say. I was like, this woman, right at the grassroots level, who's been left with her children and cannot do anything, how can they be empowered to deal with these social issues? That is how I moved back into my world, the world of entomology, and then the food security coming into it. But then I wasn't going to afford this PhD, so I needed a scholarship. And I looked for one for many years, and I never got the exact thing that I was looking for. Interestingly, I was supposed to come here about 5 years ago. I was coming for an activity. I was invited by the WorldCOMP president, and I was coming. So I went for my visa interview, and I wasn't just coming by myself. We were coming as part of a team, but there was one particular girl in our team who was quite young, and I wasn't sure she would get the visa. So I went with her to the American embassy in Kenya, and you guys can be mean. The way they reject you and give you the pink card, it can break your heart. And I was seeing men coming out crying, and I was like, I will not let this girl go through this by herself. So I told her, when we get there, I will go with you. I'm going to ask this gentleman if it's okay. We'll go together. So I went and asked the interviewer, can I come together with her? She said, it's okay, come together. The reason I did that was, I know what it felt like to be rejected. And the girl is an orphan girl supported by some members from here. She had received a sponsorship from someone from here taking her through. She grew up in the slum. So her chances of getting a visa were so thin. Mine were high. I was married, I was working, so I had many things. I had many routes back home. It would be so easy for me to get a visa, but it would be so hard for her to get one. So I thought to myself, if I walk here with this girl, she goes to a different counter, I go to a different counter, and I get a visa and she does not get a visa, what will the feeling be? And I thought, no. I'd rather go with her so that if we get it together. If we miss it together. It makes the pain more bearable. Because as an orphan, the first thing that comes anytime you're rejected, the first thing that rings in your mind is, did they reject me because I am an orphan? It takes you back to the root. Your default mechanism takes you back to where it all started. You'll not even look at it from what is happening at this point, but you're like, this is because of what I am. So I said, we'll go with you. And we went, and we were graciously rejected together. And you are given the pink card. Denied. And she was broken. It was bad. She didn't talk to me all the way until we got out of the embassy. She sent me a message a day later and asked, why did they reject us? That is what she asked. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what determines who they give a visa and who they do not give a visa. But well, it happened. So I was trying to imagine if that happened to her, if she was alone. So that happened. Then a few days later, when I was supposed to be here in the US, I received a call from one of the local institutions in Kenya. And somebody called me and asked me, are you Kababu? I said, yes, I am Kababu. Then I said, who are you? Then he said, I'm calling you from this university. I said, why are you calling me from a university? You have received a scholarship and we expect you to register by, was it tomorrow or like 2 days later? You're supposed to be in school by Monday. That was on a Thursday. You should be registered and in school by Monday. Registration is ending and we don't know why you have not come. I had no idea. Then I was like, are you serious? Then he said, yeah. Then he asked me, you don't sound excited. I said, until I see, I am not believing. I will be excited when I see, because I can't even tell if you're telling me the truth or not telling me the truth. It doesn't happen like that, you know. It was a strange occurrence. So I went, and truly, there was a scholarship for me. And in less than 4 hours, I was registered. I had my student ID that had been registered for this course, PhD in food security and sustainable agriculture, and my focus was going to be on edible insects. Actually, I worked on the edible longhorn grasshopper, its production, and how we can process it and utilize it as food. The food security bit, to empower, at the back of my mind, the question is, how can we empower this woman at the grassroots level to be able to stand up for herself and for her children and put food on her table using whatever mechanism? For example, a simple illustration on the production of bags. Let's say you want to produce insects back home. The cost of production is not so high. When you want to start, you do not need a lot of resources to start. You just need to have a small room and plastic containers that you can use to start producing them. These insects can be reared on waste side streams like agricultural byproducts, such like things that are safe. So they can either be used as food or they can be used as feed. And you do not need a lot of input. You don't need to buy a lot of feed to produce these insects. It's something that is easy. Any woman who is trained on how to do it will do it. I'm talking about a woman, not that it's a woman's business, but because I am more keen on the woman. When you empower a woman, you empower a whole community. Reason being, most of the time, they're the ones who are left. The men die so early and women are left with their children, and if they don't know what to do with themselves, the entire family, a whole generation may be cut off. But if you empower this woman to uphold and uplift this generation, then you're sure there is continuity. That's why I'm talking about a woman. So when you do that, when she is empowered, then she can take care of her children. If she takes care of her children and she's able to provide for their basic needs, then it's a guarantee that they will move to higher levels. Yeah, that's why I am keen on food security. So everything is getting meshed up together. There was HIV here, there was gender-based violence here, and the whole of it all ties up to food security. When you empower this woman, when you take care of their social needs, then they can rise up to meet the challenges that life brings. Welcome.
For sharing your story. Deb, do you have any thoughts you want to share?
Oh, no, just that we are sitting amongst a great cloud of witnesses. Somebody who is inspires me all the time, every day. I just, I think what's so awesome is she sits on our board in Kenya, and so she, she's a professor, she's a mom, she's got 3 kids. She is now can take care of her family. She's got all the resources for that. And so I would think that she might look back and say, oh, I did my time. I was an orphan. There was years I didn't eat. I never had anything. And now I've earned this. And so she could just rest on that and live her life and live in comfort. But instead, she is saying, God, you've given me this affluence. You've given me this title, this position, this wealth. You've blessed me to be a blessing. And so truly to watch her go out into the community and just do that, be a blessing, I think is just so inspiring to me and to all of us who we are an affluent society. We are, the top 1% of the richest people in the entire world, And so just to live life, just to say, God, you've blessed me to be a blessing. And however that looks, And so anyways, I stand with you. It's a real privilege to hear her entire story. And so she is definitely, I'm going to say in quotes, my sister, as the Kenyans say.
Thank you. We're going to link up in the show notes for ways that you can find out more about WorldCOMP Kenya and a way that you can get a hold of Kababu. And what a blessing it has been to hear your story.